It's about the Brutalist and everything about it, from its ending to its themes and what exactly happened to Harrison at the end. So if all of those are things you want answered, we're going to answer them here. But like they say, it is not about the journey, it is about the destination. And that's something they say at the end of the film, of course. We will just brush over the plot real quickly just to get a little bit of a refresher of what's going on. Make sure you follow us here for all things you love in films, TV shows, pop culture. Let's get into this new film from Brady Corvette, who is pretty much on a run right now. This movie could potentially become the best picture, and we could definitely see Corvette win best director. But let's talk about the life of Laszlo Toth, who is played by Adrian Brody. And let's start at the beginning. So pretty much what we see is that Laszlo Toth is a Hungarian Jewish Holocaust survivor who has been separated from his wife as well as his niece and now immigrates into the United States. We learn that he is a former architect as well, and he is going to stay with his cousin Attila and his wife Audrey in Philadelphia. Eventually, they work together on a new proposal for Harrison Lee Van Buren, Harry, who wants to surprise his father with a new library. So we see Laszlo and Attila get to work, as well with some other people, including Gordon, who is a single father who Laszlo has befriended since he immigrated here. Turns out Harrison did not want this library. He surprises them one day by arriving a little bit earlier than Harry intended, and he's pissed that they are demolishing and doing something to his study. We then see that Attila and Laszlo have a falling out due to his wife not really wanting Laszlo there, and so we see Laszlo evicted. So Laszlo has to leave Attila's home, and we see that Laszlo has now become a heroin addict, staying at a charity house alongside Gordon and his child. Laszlo's pretty much a little bit rock bottom right now, right? He doesn't really have anywhere else to go and doesn't have anywhere else to find a way to bring his wife and his niece to the United States. But Harrison turns up and says that he has found out who Laszlo really is, and that he is going to repay him the money he owes him, and also wants him to come to a party in order to reveal something. That is where it is revealed that he wants Laszlo to build a monument in honor of his mother, who has just passed away. It will be a community center that has a library, a theater, a gymnasium, and a chapel. We see as Laszlo begins to work immediately with this, also employing Gordon, who of course is his friend, and we see that Laszlo is now promised by Harrison and his lawyer that they will bring his wife and his niece to America. And this is where we have the intermission. So I think we pretty much see Laszlo just living this immigrant experience, trying to be a better person, to really come up the ranks and things like that. We see Harrison as this sort of roadblock that he has at one point, but then Harrison has a change of heart, you could say. But more importantly, it's because of the status of Laszlo as this grand architect that Harrison wants him and needs him to build this monument for him. And of course, we see that everybody kind of changes their tune when they find this out about Laszlo, and it's more about looking over who Laszlo is as a person and just looking at what he has accomplished and how they can benefit from that too, which we'll talk about in a bit. So this is where the intermission cuts in. You have 15 minutes to go get your refreshment. You have 15 minutes to go to the restroom, whatever you need to do. So we'll give you 15 minutes right now. I'm just playing. Let's get into part 2 right now, which is called The Hardcore of Beauty. And this is where we see Laszlo finally be reunited with his wife Elizabeth, as well as his niece Sophia, and he quickly finds out that his wife is wheelchair bound now due to osteoporosis from the famine, and Sophia is now mute. We eventually see that a developer is hired as well, and him and Laszlo clash about the monument and things like that, about the design, the cost of material, all of this. We quickly see that Laszlo is then told by the family that he has to remember he's not accepted, he is just merely being tolerated. Something that starts to irk Laszlo, and we see even Harrison be a bit condescending towards Laszlo at a dinner table, treating him like a peasant, like he is less than. We can pretty much attribute that to jealousy on Harrison's part, because Harrison always talks about how Laszlo is a grand artist and things like that, but he still hates him because Harrison has all of this wealth, all of this power, all of this money, none of the artistic elements that Laszlo has for himself. So this is something that irks Harrison throughout. So following the derailment of a train carrying the materials, it costs a lot for Harrison to keep going forward. Furiously, he just abandons everything and everybody just loses their work. The movie then skips forward a couple of years where Laszlo and Elizabeth have now moved to New York City. Sophia is no longer mute and is expecting a child as well with her new husband, and she announces that they will actually be moving to Jerusalem now, and she wants Laszlo and Elizabeth to come with them, but Laszlo and Elizabeth say they have their own life here. here. Laszlo is now working at an architecture firm. One day, Harrison comes to contact Laszlo that they will resume the construction of the monument yet again, which Laszlo agrees to do so. They then go to the mines of Carrara to purchase some marble, and this is where we see Harrison really just take it over the edge. And I think that we truly see who Harrison is in this instance, because as Laszlo is intoxicated, he then proceeds to rape him in an act of domination, calling him a leech, and his people invite their own persecution, he says. So we see that Harrison has been feeling this animosity towards Laszlo all of this time, and I think Harrison doesn't want to see Laszlo feel that he is sort of worthy or anything like that, because Harrison wants to still have this power, wants to still be the dominant one. Even though Laszlo is the one that's building this grand monument for his mother, it still kind of irks him that Laszlo has all of this glory and has this artisticness in him that he doesn't have, even with all of that money. After the brutal attack from Harrison, we see that Laszlo starts to lash out at everybody, including firing Gordon during an argument during the construction of it all, and he even gets into a fight with Erzavet as well, that they are not welcome in America, and he is just done with it all. Erzavet then needs to have her medication one night, but there's no more of it, so Laszlo decides to give her some heroin as he still continues to use it in order to soothe the pain from the osteoporosis. We see her have an OD. Before she ODs from the heroin, however, Laszlo comes forth with what happened in the mines with Harrison, and she then talks to him about moving to Jerusalem with Sophia and the family and just being happy over there and leaving America behind, which he agrees to do so. However, before they leave, Erzavet, now using a walker, is able to pay a visit to Harrison, where she calls him a rapist in front of everybody, his family and associates that are having dinner, and we see Harry violently take her out of the dining hall as everybody else starts leaving, and Harrison goes into the monument and everybody's trying to look for him, and nobody knows what happened to Harrison, but we pretty much assume that Harrison has taken his own life. So in an interview with The Hollywood Reporter, Joe Alwyn is asked about the ending. The interviewer says, "I have to ask, that ending is a little murky, isn't it? Where we witness this entire unraveling of the whole family when Erzavet comes to confront Harrison, who then goes missing. Is there something more concrete that the audience have so far missed?" And Joe Alwyn goes on to say, "I had a text from a friend asking me the same thing yesterday. I think in the script it's probably more clearer than it is shown on screen. There's a line, maybe it's even buried somewhere in the film, when they're searching for him and someone says, 'We found something.' I don't remember if it was explicit as 'we found a body,' but I think the implication is that he's killed himself. But I quite like that it's opaque and you don't end on a shot of him in this monument dead. But yeah, I'm pretty sure that's what that ending is." The interviewer goes on to say, "That is extremely helpful. I was worried I hadn't picked up on something." Joe Alwyn continues by saying, "A couple of people have actually asked me about the moment between Harry and Erzavet at the end when he takes her out of the house. His reaction is so big to the accusations against his dad, and a few people have said, is that because he has experienced something similar in the past? And it's not something that I gave a huge amount of thought to while shooting it, but I found that an interesting commentary." It does make sense, I think, and it's kind of threaded throughout, but it was never there in the script. Brady never said anything about it. There's a mixture of anger and shock and shame, but perhaps there's some kind of buried trauma there as well. So there you have it. Pretty much it seems to imply that Harrison has taken his life at the end of The Brutalist, and that is something that's in the script. I haven't looked into the script myself, but this is what Joe Alwyn told The Hollywood Reporter, and I did kind of find it fascinating. He continued to elaborate that Harry lashed out so violently against Erzavet because maybe this was something that he's also experienced with his father, and hearing the words of his father being a rapist maybe triggered some things inside of him. It also is implied as well that he had some ill intent with Sophia in an earlier part of the film, Harry, when he was sort of like stalking her of sorts and even making lewd remarks about her. But we're not going to try to get too deep into that because it doesn't really explicitly say, but that's something that Joe Alwyn does say. Eventually we see an epilogue, and it is in 1980. Erzavet has died, and there is a retrospective of Laszlo's work being held in Venice, and this includes the community center, which was actually completed after decades hiatus. Sophia is now an adult, and she also has an adult daughter. We see Laszlo now aging, and he's in a wheelchair, and she gives a speech about her uncle, highlighting how the Van Buren Community Center was designed by Laszlo to resemble concentration camps that had imprisoned the thoughts. She ends by saying a quote that Laszlo once told her: "No matter what others try and sell you, it is the destination, not the journey," as the movie comes to an end. And so I think with that ending, it really leaves it up to a lot of interpretation. I don't think it's as clean cut as maybe people think it is, and maybe it is, and I'm just reading too much into it. I do read into things a lot, but I really do think that this speech that Sophia is giving about her uncle's work, because we never really hear Laszlo talk about his work right at the end, or how he truly feels about it, or how that monument came to be by the end. And the key things is that Laszlo was still building a monument that sort of represented trials and tribulations that he went through in his life, as well as his family. And even though Harrison didn't know about this either, and Harrison still believed it was a monument about his mother, one of the things that's going to be important to note is that this monument will outlive both of them. It will stand there, it will test the times and all of that, and the meaning of the building will differ between the people, even though you intended it to be something else at the beginning, which Harrison intended it to be a monument for his mother, and sort of a way to show off his ego also, that he had this money and power to do so. But I think Laszlo as well still wanted to regain some artistic control within this situation and still do a monument that he felt would interpret what he was trying to do as an artist and not just be a worker. And I think this is something that clashed with Harrison as well as with Laszlo, is that they wanted to do their own thing as well, but Laszlo knew he had to also sort of give up some things in the process. But Laszlo literally had to endure so much in order to finally be able to finish this work. And I think it is also, in a way, we see Laszlo there sitting wondering if all of that is worth it. Like everything he went through, he put his family through and all of that, the American dream, quote unquote, was that really worth it by the end? Now his work is just being seen here by all of these people, but do they really get the meaning behind it all by the end, right? That's one way I can see that ending sort of being bleak as well, in a way where we don't really get Laszlo talking about his work either, and we see that he is like there, just there. Like that's it. He has these amazing works and he's just there. He's not really able to speak about what he thought about it. So that's the thing I think is very interesting. The art is being interpreted by somebody else, not Laszlo himself. So is that really the right interpretation of it? So we never really get a sense of how Laszlo does truly feel about his legacy now and all of that. And I think that's something we can think about with anything in history, right? Never really dive deep into the journey, you could say, of something happening. We just arrive at the destination and see it, and we just discuss it there, but we never really know everything that went into it right before what eventually is now a historical event, right? And you can if you want to, but for the most part, most people won't. They'll just see this happened because of this and that's it, but never really get the context and all of that as well. And I think that's an interesting thing we can see here. Another way to see it, and that was in my initial viewing of the film, is that Laszlo is saying Sophia's speech at the end. She's pretty much saying that Laszlo endured a lot. He went through all of this, and that journey was hell and all of that. It wasn't fun. It wasn't great throughout. There were some moments of darkness and moments where he was at rock bottom, but at the end of the day, that destination was finishing his art, having his art be seen by people, and that was the most important aspect of it all and the most fulfillment he got. You could see it in that way if you want to see a little bit of a brighter note in it all. I think one of the things that is very important to note here is that Laszlo was sort of appeasing capitalism in order to be able to do the project that he's been wanting to do, which was this monument to sort of represent what he endured with his family during the Holocaust and things like that. So he had to sort of endure this hell with Harrison in order to be able to accomplish that. Almost kind of like a Faustian type tale where he gives himself to the devil of sorts in order to get what he wants, but is it worth it at the end when all is said and done and the dust has cleared? Is that ultimately what he wanted, or is this what he thought he wanted? A dream that he was fed that actually was a nightmare. I don't know. We can definitely get more deeper into it. I could talk about this movie for a bit more. I need to rewatch it. I want to rewatch it before the Oscars and things like that. Maybe we'll redo a video, talk more about the ending. But you let me know what you thought about the ending. Is it a bleak ending? Is this what Laszlo truly wanted for his life and his work to show? Or is it a happy ending? Did Laszlo endure all of that, immigrating to the United States, dealing with drug abuse, dealing with Harrison, dealing with everything that came forth in his life? Now he has his work to show and be shown to people, but he's not able to really speak about it now that it's all said and done. That's a big thing. That's a big thing. So let me know your thoughts, your opinions on The Brutalist. There's so much to discuss. I'm not right, by the way. This is not the true ending. I've always tried to say that this is not the ending that I think the filmmakers are trying to say is the true ending. This is just what I think, and if you think something else differently, comment it below. Let's discuss it. But anyways, as always, hit that subscribe button, notification bell, on the road to 40,000 subscribers. I'll see all of you next time. Stay safe, stay positive.